Hello and welcome to Square Raindrop. I'm Jo Wheeler.
And I'm Steph Golter.
Steph Golter, who has been somewhere very nice and warm and sunny, and I'm not jealous at all.
I've been to Argentina. So my other half comes from Argentina. So we went to Buenos Aires, but we also went to the north where all his family's from, a little city called Resistencia. And it's very near Paraguay, and it's all very tropical and very nice. Apparently there are even hummingbirds there at certain times of year, but not when we were there.
So you saw plenty of sunshine, but you didn't chat much.
That's right. The language proves to be a problem. If you dropped me in the middle of a Spanish-speaking country, I could get around fine. I could order food. I could stay in hotels, all the rest of it. But I could not make friends. That is my level of Spanish.
It could be said. It could be said that even here you've got problems.
You can go right off some people, Joanna.
Yeah, well, you can go right off some people when they've been in the sunshine. But it has to be said, it's not been so bad here for much of the week anyway.
For some people, for us, it's been quite cloudy in North Hampshire. It's not been the sunniest. Yesterday was really nice and sunny, but now it's gone downhill again, as it will for most of us this weekend.
It's not looking good, is it? And I know you don't like the long range forecasts, but I'm only looking into the start of next week now, and we're looking at some snow showers. All right, not in North Hampshire, not even in Lincolnshire, yeah, but a little further north, kind of the Peak Districts northwards, any high ground could see some wintry showers. It's almost the end of April, for goodness sake.
I know the winds are turning right round again, and whereas they've been bringing us some mild air, they're swinging round from the north, being really quite brisk and rather over keen, shall we say, for the end of April, and yeah, bringing in some wintry showers, which is far from ideal, but little bit of good news on the horizon. I mean, I am not one for long range forecasts, but I had a look just for you, Jo, because I know you are. And it does suggest that maybe at the beginning of May, we're going to have a drier period. You know, for a few days, looks drier, looks a bit warmer. So fingers crossed that comes off.
Is that for the coronation weekend?
It's sort of the beginning of May. So the coronation is what, the 7th? Is that right?
6th
or 7th, yeah. So I think by then might be over. We can keep our fingers crossed it keeps going. That's all we can do, Jo.
Whilst we're talking about changing weather and that kind of thing, this alarm on Sunday, now you might have missed all the furore over this. So 23rd of April at 3 o'clock, we're all going to receive on our mobile phones this alarm that goes off for 10 seconds, makes everybody go, ah! And then you have to press a button to make it go away, otherwise your phone freezes. And it's been the subject of much controversy. The idea of this thing is that it alerts us to things like extreme weather events.
Okay.
Now, coming back to the UK, yeah, I have been doing weather since Pussy was a kitten, and probably a bit longer. And I think in all that time, I've had one red alert ever. Is this alarm going to go off every time there's a yellow wind warning or a little bit too much rain? Or is it the Environment Agency sending out flood warnings? I mean, where does this begin and end? Because I can see this could be it could drive an awful lot of fear and anxiety.
Yes, and we couldn't answer that. I would hope it was only when there was a significant threat. I would say red alerts is where they need to aim for, because some yellows are fairly common. You can have a yellow that's with you for a few days, and what is it going to keep going off during that period? I understand the theory behind it, because in the States, Tornado Alley, they have alarms. They have ones in the street as well, so you can hear the sirens go off and you know when there's a tornado coming. But those are very precise. You know, they watch the clouds, they see the rotation happening, and then they tell everybody, take shelter now. In the UK, the weather isn't quite that deadly usually. We do have fatalities, but it's not that. It's usually a tree down in the wind or something like that. You can get red warnings. We had one not so long ago over the London area that caused, you know, a little bit of excitement. And that storm was a deadly storm. So I can understand the theory behind it, but only if it's used properly. And I guess only time will tell on that one.
And also an awful lot of things in the UK happen in a cumulative fashion. So, for instance, you know, when you get flooding, it's usually because you've had a lot of rain and then the quantity of rain is then maintained over a few days. And I have to say, you know, we had some fairly windy weather beginning of last week, and my fence blew down, not because the strength of the wind was so harsh that it took the fence down, but because the wood has been silently decaying for some time, and it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. And it also, the trouble with these alarms, and I don't know how they deal with this in other countries, but you know, some people who suffer domestic abuse have a lifeline phone somewhere in the house that their other half doesn't know about. And if you suddenly get alarms going off, it is going to kind of reveal the whereabouts of such a phone. And also I can see some old people getting quite startled by it. I mean, it's the middle of the afternoon. There are 2 semi-finals on at Wembley that day. Or can they both be at Wembley? I'm not very good on football.
Very clever. They've chopped it in half.
I know that Manchester United aren't there after that dreadful loss to West Ham last night. That's about as the extent of my football knowledge. But yes, whether you're having a nap, if it were to be a lovely sunny afternoon, and suddenly it's not just you, but all your neighbours' phones all go wah, wah, wah. I mean, it's going to be quite startling. So, but anyway, what I was going to say is you can switch it off. If you don't want it, you can switch it off. Dear Rishi is begging us not to, but go into settings, notifications, and take out the extreme and severe alerts. And then we can do a retrospective on how the public felt it went.
I think it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. And as long as it's used only in cases of severe notice, then I think it will be fine and we'll all be quite happy to have it. But if it's used too much, that's when people will start turning it off, and that's when it won't be useful because not enough people will have it.
Won't serve a purpose. Absolutely. Now, you found yourself some interesting bedtime reading.
I did. The state of the global climate. Now, I read these every year, and I don't really know why I do, because I do find them very depressing. Like, obviously, climate and climate change is incredibly important. But the reason I love weather is because it changes. You can understand the reasons behind it. There's some good days, there's some bad days, there's intermediate days, there's just things happening, and some of them are fun. With climate, it's very hard to have an "and finally" story, to have a happy news story. It's things about sea level rising, glaciers melting, amounts of carbon dioxide and methane in the atmosphere reaching their highest levels. It's all things that you know are happening, but thinking about it and the fact that there is really very little I as an individual can do, thinking about that, it makes me slightly worried and concerned, and then it's beyond my control, essentially. That's how I feel. And so I find those quite difficult to read because I would like it to stop and I would like everybody to stop, but me on my own, what can I do?
Well, as we head towards 2030 and net zero, it does seem that the governments of the world are doing something about it, you know, whatever impact it may have. Slightly concerned as well about the London Marathon this weekend. A lot of the climate activists are threatening to interrupt things, should we put it that way, or more to the point, they promise that they won't, which in part is more worrying. Okay, so you're not going to interrupt it. What are you going to do? Hopefully everything goes off very quietly, and you know, and they obviously have a point, and we need to do what we can about the climate. I understand the courts are taking a pretty dim view of people who are taking the law into their own hands.
Yeah, so having said, you know, climate news is often very depressing and all the rest of it, it would be nice to have a more uplifting story. There are some if you look for them, and I think that's what we need to do. So yes, there was a farmer you mentioned. He completely obliterated part of a riverbank that ran through his property. It was the River Lugg in Herefordshire, and he took out plenty of mature trees. Just it was a place where otters live, where also the amazing wildlife, and he just completely stripped it. But the courts have given him a £1.2 million fine. That's for court costs as well as the fine. And he's been
how much?
1.2 million. He's got to pay it back in the year, and he's got 12 months in prison. And I think that prison sentence is the thing that's really going to put him off ever doing anything like that, and will put other people off as well, which is important.
I don't deny that what he did was wrong, but if it was on his land, did he not have the right to do that?
No, not at all. And he was given a stop and desist notice whilst he was carrying out the work, and he carried on. So it's not like he didn't know. Indeed. And well done to the Environment Agency and to Natural England for actually making the case and making it a successful one, getting enough evidence together. It's no mean feat to get a good sentence.
Absolutely not. Well, there's a lesson well learned, and hopefully a lesson shown to everybody else as well. hopefully next time we speak, we'll be talking about those fine conditions in May and not the snow showers which are going to disrupt travel next week.
Exactly. At least I've decided to live far enough down south that I won't see the snow, because I am completely rubbish when it comes to anything to do with cold weather, as you know, Jo.
Well, remember, if you'd like us to discuss anything on Square Raindrop, you can get hold of us
At Square Raindrop. Oh no, it isn't.
at Square Raindrop. She's been away. It takes her a while to catch up.
So you can email us now as well, weather@squareraindrop.com, or find us on Twitter @squareraindrop, because Square Raindrop didn't fit.